Genesis 22, the offering of Isaac. Now after these things, God tested the faith and commitment of Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he answered, Here I am. God said, Take now your son, your only son of promise, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac, and he split the wood for the burnt offering. And then he got up and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day of travel, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Abraham said to his servants, Settle down and stay here with the donkey. The young man and I will go over there and worship God, and we will come back to you. Then Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on the shoulder of Isaac his son, and he took the fire pot in his own hand and the sacrificial knife, and the 2 of them walked on together. And Isaac said to Abraham, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. Isaac said, Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself a lamb for the burnt offering. So the 2 walked on together. His son just trusted him. And Abraham trusted God. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood and bound Isaac his son and placed him on the altar on top of the wood. Things like this you can't even understand. Like reading that, you're like, why would you bind your son up and put him on there? By listening to God, that faith. Like in our modern day time, it doesn't even sound like that even sound anything rational to do, does it? Not at all. And I don't know why, and I can't even understand why they would do that. He would ask them to do that. It goes to a basis of faith and trusting completely. So Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he answered, Here I am. The Lord said, Do not reach out with the knife in your hand against the boy, and do nothing to harm him. For now I know that you fear God with reverence and profound respect, since you have not withheld from me your son, your only son of promise. Then Abraham looked up and glanced around, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering, and sending sacrifice instead of his son. So Abraham named that place, The Lord Will Provide. And it is said to this day, On the mountain of the Lord it will be seen and provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, By myself, on the basis of who I am, I have sworn an oath, declares the Lord, that since you have done this thing and have not withheld from me your son, your only son of promise, indeed I will greatly bless you, and I will greatly multiply your descendants like the stars of the heaven and like the sand on the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gates of their enemies as conquerors. Through your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have heard and obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his servants, and they got up and went with him to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba. And after these things, Abraham was told, Micah has borne children to your brother Nahor, Uz the firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, Chesed and Hazo and Pildash and Jidalef and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These 8 children like Milcah born to Nahat, Abraham's brother. Nahor's court concubine, whose name was Rumah, gave birth to Teba and Gaham and Tasha and Makkah. So you read this chapter and you're like, what? How can you do it? But it's the level of faith and trust in God. Like how much, like it doesn't even, like it, that doesn't even sound rational, does it? Not at all. But then I even think in our day to day, and I think of like what people do to trust God. Like if you talk about tithing and telling people that you tithe 10% of your income and you give to the church. Like to people that look at the world and how messed up it is and how financially crunched people are, to tell somebody that just sounds crazy. That sounds crazy to think to give to a church. Why would you give to a church or a ministry or whatever when they appear they already have all the money that they need? They've got big fancy buildings. They've got all these things. Why would you sacrifice that? People look at that as crazy, right? Why would you have 10 kids? That's insane. Why would you do the things you do in today's world? Why would you do, pick a multitude of things that just sounds crazy? I think you can relate to reading the story about Abraham where you go, I would never do that. That just sounds awful. But I know people will look at it and go, I can never just give away 10% of my income because that doesn't even seem rational. Or I can never have 10 kids because that's just crazy. That just blows my mind, the level of insanity. Does that make sense, explaining that a little bit? So we read this, I don't know. But we all go back to the point of turning it and focusing it toward the Lord. What is the point of it? The point is, look what God did. He said, Abraham, because of your faithfulness, because of what you did, I know that you love me more than anything, and you trust me, and you're going to follow me. So I am going to give you this. I'm going to promise you that you're going to have descendants more than the sand of the sea. What? That's a lot of descendants. He didn't even get to see all his descendants in the end, but God is going to give him. And then we're reading about him today because of his obedience, and he's considered the father of faith. And we read about his stories over and over in the New Testament, over and over about by faith what he did. So we're reading this stuff and going, okay, how can this be in my own life? So good reading. This is your daily Bible chapter, reading God's Word Monday through Friday. See you tomorrow.